Yo, this is Abdullah Konte with Skylar Nelson, and this is Win Sports, and we are here to discuss the news of the day, which is Brian Robinson has been traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a sixth-round pick. It was kind of news that was expected. We kind of been following this for the last few days, knowing that a change was coming, whether he was going to get cut or shopped and traded. And, there was a little bit of a market for him, and it seemed like there was people that were interested in running back. I thought he would probably be headed to Miami. That didn't happen. He's going to San Fran. So, Skylar, what's your take on the trade itself and his destination? And, is he going to be missed in this locker room?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this trade, obviously, we knew that it was bound to happen, obviously, with the news that was going on early on this week. And there have been some in-house talks about it within the media and then also, too, within the organization, obviously. So this trade, honestly, is good on both sides of the table. I think it was a mutual agreement in terms of just from the 49ers side. I mean, Adam Peters, he still has relationships there, even though he's not with them anymore. And to be able to make that trade there, the 49ers are still, in this case for B-Rob, it's kind of a good look because despite the injuries that they had last year, they're still a championship playoff contender type of team. So, for that kind of helps B-Rob because it's not like that he's starting over on a new team. He gets to go in there. He has some guys around him that can really lift him up. And I think, sometimes Dan Quinn says this all the time. Sometimes players just need a new start. They need a new environment. B-Rob is not a bad running back. It's just he wasn't fitting into the scheme that the Commanders were creating. And a lot of the running backs here in Washington as well had, to me, based on what I saw, some of them had more speed than him or weren't as injured as him. And, sometimes with a team that is trying to go back to the playoffs, I feel like that, they really need to look at that more. We see guys like Chris Rodriguez Jr. He really made huge contributions last year in the playoffs. And, to kind of take that into consideration, they had to trade B-Rob. And I think, obviously from a brotherhood standpoint, these players will miss him. But long term, the Commanders, I think, made a good decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think, based upon the NFL, this happens. People leave, people are on different teams. Every year there's guys that come from different squad. There's guys that leave. They just saw Antonio Gibson a couple weeks ago. So it's not like, every game you'll see guys that used to be here. So it's just the nature of the NFL. Like there's not a lot of people who spend their whole career on one team. That's just not something that's very likely. You have to be the top of your game, or it might just make sense for you, financially to be in one spot. And so, it just probably wasn't the best fit. I think last year we started to see that, I think B-Rob has his limitations when it comes to his ability. I think he's a very strong, hard-nosed runner. I do think he lacks in speed, and I think that that's kind of what they're seeing with some of the guys that they're bringing in. And, there was rumblings that they weren't thrilled about his performance in the playoffs or late last year. And there wasn't a good running game last year. I mean, it really started off hot, but I think it's just hard to get through a full season. And so with some of the guys, I think they just kind of felt like, hey, they had value there. They have about 4 to 5 guys that I felt good about. And they were like, if we're going to move somebody, this would be the most likely candidate, as well as trying to accumulate some more draft capital for next year. So do I feel like they're going to miss him? It's possible. It's possible that later in the year, especially if there's some injuries that happen within the running back room, you could be like, man, it could be nice to have B-Rob. And I think, is it good for him to be in San Fran? I agree. He's going to a team that is going to compete for a Super Bowl, or at least is still in that Super Bowl window. And, being behind CMC will be ideal for him because he won't have to be the starting back, but he brings something that CMC doesn't have, which is that tough, running ability inside the tackles. I mean, I think CMC is a great running back, but when you need strong 2 to 3 yards, he might be able to do that better than CMC. So I think it's a good fit for him. I think it's tough because I think he was a good player, and out of the Ron Rivera era, like I think he was one of the better draft picks, and it's just kind of crazy just how much he's contributed in the past and how much he's been loved in the past for him to be gone. But I also think that there is reasons for that. I do think that they really do lack a big home run threat kind of person, and I think that they see that more with Bill and Jeremy McNichols and C-Rod, and obviously they already have Eckler. So is he going to be missed? I think personality wise and like just being another element to the team, yes. I think on the field, I think that's where you can really debate, is he really going to be missed or not. I'm not quite sure. I think we saw, just based off what we've seen so far in camp, some of these other guys can contribute thoroughly, and I think them as a committee, as a group, they're not going to miss him too hard. So we'll see. I mean, only time will tell. But it's, kind of closing the chapter on that, because we kind of knew that this was coming. We've been anticipating it. I think that's kind of why there's not even much to say. We've kind of talked about him and his role and just them lacking. And so I think my question to you outside of that is just that, who do you think, at the end of the year, who do you think is really going to be that guy that they're talking about? Is it going to be C-Rod? Is it going to be, Bill? Is it going to be just a mix of all of them together? Like, is somebody going to really take that number one role? Is this really going to be a committee type running back room?
Honestly, as much as I want to say Bill, you also got to understand that he's a rookie. And sometimes, you don't want to put too much pressure or too much analysis on a rookie. I do want to give that kind of fitting without disrespecting Austin Eckler. I do want to give that to Chris Rodriguez Jr. because I do feel like that he has a lot of football in him to play. And I feel like last year it was pretty limited because of a lot of things that were going on in the running back room, and
Yeah.
and also too, just the fact that he was coming off of the practice squad. So, I do feel like this year he can potentially have that breakout year. Now, Austin, one thing I will say about Austin is he is definitely still a reliable player despite him getting older and despite him being in that
Oh, yeah.
veteran status. I do feel like that he's very reliable, and he came in clutch in certain moments last year, and you can't pretty much ignore that. So I do feel like he is going to be that guy that's going to get that inch or two ahead, while C-Rod and basically Bill are going to provide that speed that the running back room needs. So I do feel like, it's going to be a mixture of all of them, but I think Chris Rodriguez Jr. for sure is going to have a breakout year.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's fair to say, and I think that we saw him run really, really well and really hard last year. I do think it's going to be probably a little bit more on the committee side. I do like Bill a lot. I really do think that he kind of has a lot of the qualities that you're hoping for in a team that you're trying to spread the field out. And I think that that's what is really intriguing about his play and why they want him here, is I think that he just is better suited for Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I think
Absolutely.
Eckler plays a role, and I think that that's why when they were debating who they could let go, I think Eckler plays more of a better role for this offense than B-Rob does,
Yeah.
because I think that C-Rod and Bill probably have more qualities that can be replaced, more of the qualities that B-Rob is leaving with than if Eckler was to leave, right? I mean, Eckler is probably their best catching running back. Like, he's going to probably be the best one in the passing game. I think Bill
Yeah.
has a chance to be that too. So, I think that, they had to make a choice, and maybe they didn't have to, but they decided to make a choice that was better for the team. And I think that they
Yeah.
went with somebody that they felt like they can replace. And I think ultimately, I do think the collective, with the improvement of the O line, I think that will give these other guys plenty of opportunities to strive in this offense. So it's one of these
Yeah.
things where it's like, I think they invested in the O line knowing that they can get rid of somebody like B Rob, and that's where it came to fruition. So well, okay, there was only a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Obviously keep this kind of a shorter video. The other one was, did you have any opinions on Jayden being number 21 on the top 100? There was a lot of people who were annoyed because they're like, they don't think that they thought that he should be at least a top 15, maybe top 10 pick. Did you have any thoughts on that, or was it just kind of like not important?
I mean, to a certain extent, it is important because you're talking about the NFL's top 100. But at the same time, I do kind of understand where people are kind of frustrated about. But at the same time, too, guys, it was his first year being in the league.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, come on, there's
I
only
think.
certain limitations that we have to give. Obviously, Jayden Daniels to me is a top 5 quarterback.
Mhm.
However, you gotta understand that it was his first year being in the NFL. Now, after this season, we can comment more on that. But, you know,
It's just
last year was his
yeah.
first
Go
year.
ahead.
It was his first year
Yeah,
being in the league.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that like it's clear because it's voted by the players too, right? And it's probably just
Yeah,
that they're like he's good, but like he's only done it once, so we need
right.
to see it more too. I mean, I hate that that's like that's an argument, but that's kind of how it is for anybody. Like
Yeah,
if you're playing anything and a new guy just shows up and he balls out, you're like, hey, that guy was nice, but you're like, you need to see it consistently. If he does it two or three
yeah,
times, then you're like, that guy's different. And I think that if Jayden was to have the same similar years he did last year, yeah, he wouldn't be ranked 21. He'd probably be ranked in the top 10. And I think that we
yeah,
all kind of feel that he's a top 10 player. I don't care. I'll be honest. It doesn't bother me at all. It's one of these things where it's like,
hmm
yeah, sure, I think it's stupid, but a lot of rankings are stupid. Even the Heisman Trophy's stupid. Like there's just a lot of these things where it's like, if he wins games, that's all I care about. Like I really don't
yeah.
care what the
Like,
ranking is. Like I understand that people, they wanted to see him higher, and I think he probably deserved to be at least in the top 15 if I was ranking him. But at the same time, it's like it don't matter. I'm happy to see that he's up there. I'm glad that he's getting the respect even after a rookie year. I know if he had this in his third season and 3 straight years of this play, he wouldn't be number 21. He'd be number 10. He'd be top 10. But like, yeah, there's just this element of like, hey, he's a rookie. We can't rank him
yeah.
that high because we don't know if he can continuously do it, right? Like we've seen
Now,
rookies play really well and then kind of
mhm.
fall off, and I think that that's what they're. It's the one hit wonder kind of mentality.
Yeah. And plus, too, if you want to argue something, I mean, I wouldn't argue that. Top 21, I mean, top 100, to be 21 on the top 100, I mean, to be real,
Yeah,
like, that's an accomplishment for a rookie. But if you want to argue something in terms of Jaden Daniels, argue his Madden ratings instead, not the top 100.
yeah. I don't even know what it is.
I
I mean,
think
that's
it's
fair.
like
I
they gave him like a
I think he was like an
86.
85 or yeah,
Yeah, something
86. Like
like that.
you're not wrong actually.
You
Like
can
I
argue
honestly
that.
probably yeah, I honestly feel like if I had to argue one versus the other, it's probably the Madden rating more than the top 20 or the 21 rating because yeah, I don't think he's 85 or 86 whatever. He should be like 89 or something at least, 90. Like he should be right
Right.
there. But, it's another thing. It's another thing where like he does this for 2 more years, they're gonna put him at 95. Like there's something about just being your first year that they're just like we're not gonna boost you up too high because we need to see consistency. There is a consistency.
But Madden's a video game that is made
Hmm.
every year
Hmm.
based on player ability. Now, if he
Yeah,
doesn't play
but
well this year, make him
that's the
lower or
thing.
keep him where he's at.
I think that they're just like, hey, like he played well, but is he gonna do it consistent? Like, look, if the way
Whatever.
he played last year, he should be at 95. Like that's the thing. You're right. That's why I
Exactly.
feel I agree with you. I would argue more the Madden rating versus the top 100. I really would. And so
Yeah.
that's a good point. I just think that like there is that element of like you got to do it a few times before somebody believes you. So,
Yeah.
anyways, look, last thing, just to talk about really quickly, we're not doing some big deep dive into this Ravens preseason game. I mean, come on,
Yeah, we're
like
not.
the starters aren't playing. No one like this is kind of like we're just ready for the game to end. Is there a person, because this is like the third stringers? These are guys fighting for a team for a spot. Is there a
hmm
person that you're watching and you're like, yo, this is where my attention's going to be tomorrow? Or is there no one? I mean, it could be just like, hey, I'm just here to have a good time.
Well, I also too, I need to double check, but I am looking forward to seeing more of Ja'Cory Brooks because
Yes.
of just the fact that he is young, and I do feel like we saw Jalen Lane. I have my list. We saw
Hmm.
Jalen
Hmm.
Lane. did a great job. My predictions came true on Jayden and Bill. But I do want to see Ja'Cory Brooks, whether that's score a touchdown or make some sort of impact tomorrow where it's big
Yeah.
and we kind of see that. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, you kind of took the one. I think that's the one. That's the one that we've talked about. Most of these spots are kind of taken. We think that
Yeah.
we know who's going to make it for most of these spots. I think
Yeah.
that if we're going to argue anything, that receiver group right there, whether it's Tay Martin, Ja'Cory Brooks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If Gallup or KJ Osborne, one of these guys can really, show out, I think that's the
Yeah.
one
One of
that, like,
them.
if somebody's going to win this job, if somebody balls out tomorrow, that could be like the deciding factor. So to
Yeah.
go opposite or to pick something outside of what you said, I'm gonna look at these linebackers like Madrano and Cajo
Oh, yeah.
and Duke Riley. Like, I'm curious if this. That's probably the only place, because I would say Vigors, but I just think that they're pretty solid at corner. I'd be kind of surprised if they pull Vigors just because they have 5 solid corners. They might not need another one. And he gives me practice vibes or practice
Yeah,
squad
he
vibes.
does.
Like they
He
might
does
cut
give
him
me
and bring him
practice
back for the
squad.
practice squad.
Yeah.
But yeah, the linebacking crew, these second stringers, I'm really curious of, like, is anybody going to stand out there? Because based
Yeah.
on my video yesterday, I'm not sold on the depth at that position. So it's one of these things where, like, you never know. They might bring in all these other teams are going to make their cuts, and
Yeah.
some of these guys might think they have a spot, and then another good player gets cut, and then they're like, hey, we're going to grab that guy and cut you now. You know what I mean? So the linebackers are probably the group that I'm going to be, like, very focused on. Outside of the wide
Yeah.
receivers, the linebackers, but
I'm
outside
glad
of
you
that,
actually mentioned that, though. I'm
yeah,
glad you mentioned it because the linebacker room to me, like, based on the vibes that I've been getting at camp, they're trying to find guys that they can mold into the
they're
next
projects.
Bobby
Yeah,
Wagner's. And
no,
I
you're
do
right.
feel like Kane has that. Kane definitely has that mindset, but playing like it, I do want to see more from him for sure.
I think Madrano is talented and athletic, and I think that that's what they see. And you're right. I do think these are projects. Like, a lot of these guys are projects, but it's concerning because if Bobby or Frankie get hurt,
Yeah.
who's going to replace them? That's what makes me nervous. And I don't think Jordan McGee is back. Like, we don't know who's the next in line. And I
Exactly.
think with Madrano, I mean, he's somebody who just feels like very much a project. Like, they're not expecting a lot from him this year, in my opinion. I feel like they're thinking about him one of these next couple years. But
That's what I'm
this is
saying.
one of those stuff. Yeah, no, I agree with you. You're making a great point. And I think that this is where I want to see, does he make an impact in this game when it is a lot of the backup guys. So, just who's going to stand out? I mean, and so, yeah, the linebackers and the receivers are the two that I'm really, like, curious about. Outside of that, man, I mean, I think we're just hoping no one gets injured, just everybody having a good time. It's going to be a noon
Exactly.
game. I don't think I'll be there, so I won't have photos, but I'll be tuned in. And then we'll get straight into the regular season right after that. Obviously, they're going to have a week between now and when the season starts, but it's rapidly approaching. So,
Yes.
any final words before we go?
Yes, I will be there tomorrow. So, yes, I will be there tomorrow in the press box
If
and
you see
doing
her,
post
say hi.
game.
If anybody sees her, say hi,
Yes, if you see me, say hi.
Good. All right, cool. Well, yeah, look, please like, subscribe. We're trying to continue to do this as much as we can. If you have comments or questions, we'd love to implement that into any of our next videos. We'll probably do another video tomorrow or the next day after the game, just so we can kind of go over it. We might have to do even like a 53-man prediction to see, like, what we think, who's going to make the squad, the guys that we think are going to make the squad. Because I think the cuts start officially on maybe Monday or Tuesday. It's coming up rapidly, so
Yeah, cuts start
we
next
got to get our
week.
predictions out. Yeah, so we got to get our
Yeah.
predictions out there. So, we'll be back soon. Everybody have a good time, enjoy the game, and we'll see you next week. Peace.